Hello, Sarah, and thank you so much for being my guest on the Joyful Business Club. So, before we get started, I just wanted to mention to those of you on here that many of you know that in addition to running this, I also run mastermind groups. And my next mastermind group, it's not too late to join. In fact, I just had someone join this morning. So, it takes place on Tuesday evenings. And if this is something that is of interest to you to be supported by a group of like minded people, I would so love to have you in the group. Now, to welcome Sarah. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks, Serena.
So, Sarah is the founder of Deserve Luxury, which she designs the most beautiful earrings. I don't know if you can see this, but it's a beautiful filigree dragonfly pair of earrings. I'm sure you can describe them much better than I can.
That sounded lovely.
So they've got some ruby in them and also some jade. And I feel like a Manchurian princess or empress really wearing these. They're very special.
Oh, no, you definitely described it better than me. That's gorgeous. I love that.
But we're here today not just to talk about your beautiful jewelry, but we're here also to talk about your journey with invisible illness. Now, for those of you who are watching, please say hi, drop a comment, drop a like. I always love to hear what you have to say. And this is, in fact, a very important topic and one that obviously isn't talked about enough. Thus, the title Invisible Illness. So, why? What is invisible illness and why
Yeah,
is it invisible?
yeah. Well, I guess it's invisible because it's the illnesses that we can't see. So, there's a lot of people in the community that are living with disability, and I understand that 90% of disability is actually invisible. So there's 3.3 million, and that statistic was from a few years ago, so it could be more. So there's 3.3 million Australians living with an invisible illness, and that ranges like I can't I was almost like I was like doing some research like and I was going to list them, but there's just so many, so I probably will just keep it to mine. But there's like it's just mind-blowing how many invisible illnesses exist. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Look, I hear you. My eldest son has cerebral palsy. And because he's not in a wheelchair with really strong visible signs, people always say to me, "Oh, I didn't realize he just looked normal." Well, I mean, he isn't. He isn't. Like, he has trouble eating. He has trouble writing at school, which has affected his schoolwork. He really, really wants to play sports. It's very difficult when he plays footy. He doesn't have good hand-eye coordination. He needs to wear an ankle foot orthotic to help him with his walking, for instance. He gets very tired when he walks long distances. So
Mm.
for a tween boy going on a teenager who just wants to hang out with his friends and be tough, it's actually really difficult.
Yeah, and yeah, it's so true. Like my son has some issues as well. He has sensory overload and he has mental health. And mental health is an invisible illness. So, depression and anxiety, they are both. And I suffer from anxiety as well, and I don't even add that in my in my lot, you know. But that's another thing that I can tick off my list. Um,
Yeah, I'm about the same too. As a domestic violence survivor, I get triggered fairly easily by conflict. Now, conflict is a part of life; we all have to deal with it. But if I'm in a workplace where it becomes just nasty, it affects me a lot more. And look, ideally, no workplace should have conflict because it's not an appropriate behaviour, either in the home or in the workplace. But the reality is, there are some people out there who aren't particularly empathetic or have a bad day. So it is quite difficult when you say, well, actually, your behaviour's been quite triggering. It doesn't really make it better.
No, but I think that we are coming a long way in our society. So we have a long way to go. Like, I have so much passion for diversity and inclusion. It's a really big part of me. I have worked in jobs that solely have been about that before I took on my endeavour to be a business owner. Um, and I think we are coming a long way, but we also have a long way to go. Um, but the reason I wanted to talk about this topic with you is I want other women. I mean, look, I love men. I'm married to a man, but I'm really passionate. I'm really
Well, some
passionate.
people are. Some people are married to women, so another
No,
woman.
I
So
know. But for me, well, actually, I've never actually declared this before. I recognize myself as bisexual. So there you go.
there
So
you go.
yeah,
A
never.
really big sharing
That was
Facebook
a
Live
huge
today.
share, but why not? Like, but I guess what I was trying to say is that like I like all people, but I'm really passionate about female equality, and I think, and that's why I think it's important to talk about all issues, so that we all feel equal and we don't feel alone. And what is normal anyway? Like normal, there's no one way to be. It's that it's we're all normal, because normal is everyone, I guess.
Normal is everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back a bit to talking about invisible illness, and particularly your own invisible illness. Like, how would you characterize your own health journey?
Yeah, so I got diagnosed. So my eldest child is 12, and after she was born, you do the 6-week checkup, and I had a phone call from my GP at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night asking me to go to hospital, and I was like, "What?" um,
Yeah, that would be very odd. It's not the new normal time in a
It
GP
was
course.
very strange. So she'd got my pathology, the pathology results had come back, and they'd actually called her and said, "How is this woman still functioning?" And that's when I found out I had Hashimoto's. So for people who don't know, Hashimoto's is a genetic condition, but it was obviously triggered after my pregnancy. And so I've got a thyroid that doesn't work. And so they were like, "But don't you feel really ill? And haven't you put on weight? And aren't you tired?" And I said, "Lady, I just had a baby. Every woman feels tired."
Yeah, good point. It's hard to sometimes to recognize something out of the ordinary when you are a mother.
Yeah,
And often women's health issues aren't taken seriously as well. When you can, turn up and say, I feel tired, they're like, well, yeah, that's just part of the parenting cycle.
that perfectly segues to my next thing. So everyone was worried about the Hashimoto's, and we got that, I was seeing an endocrinologist, we got that under control. But they also diagnosed at the same time me with hemochromatosis. So that's when you have high iron in your blood. It's much more common for men, and women, it usually doesn't become a problem for them until after they finish menstruating. So when you talk about women's health issues not being taken seriously, I went along at the age of 29 to a hematologist, and he told me, basically, I could almost quote him, "Oh, you don't have to worry about this until you finish menstruating. Like, I don't want to see you again until you finish menstruating." And I was like, great. So I was looking after my Hashimoto's. I wasn't having to worry about the hemochromatosis, and I was just getting on with life. In 2017, I started getting quite unwell. So I've always suffered from migraines, but they were horrific. So I'd have periods of time where I just couldn't get out of bed. And I was just so tired. And I'd never felt this, I was tired when I had my babies, like, because by this point I've got 2 kids, and I was tired, but this was just something I'd never experienced before. And so at this point, we've moved around a bit. So I've moved back to Canberra, and my GP is just like trying to diagnose what's going on for me. My endocrinologist is trying to diagnose what's going on for me. They're both women, and they were both amazing. And my endocrinologist is like, "Oh," and then they sort of say to me, "Have you got hemochromatosis?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Why haven't you told me that?" And I said, "Oh, because I don't have to worry about it till I go through menopause." And it was my endocrinologist who went, "What? Like, no, that's not right." And at this point I'm 41 years old, so quite a bit of time's passed, and I just was sort of dumbfounded, going, "Oh, okay," because at 29, and probably a lot of people, we think specialists know what they're talking about, and it's their area of expertise. So for me, I totally just trusted him.
Yeah.
So I get another, so I get in, it takes a while, but I get into another hematologist, someone who's considered one of the best hematologists in the ACT, a male hematologist. And again, I'm told, yeah, well, when I compare you to a 55-year-old man, I don't think you have any, I don't think you have anything to worry about here. No, it must be something else. And at this point, like, I'm suffering, like I'm struggling at work, and I've always been a high performer, high achiever, and everything was just going down the toilet. Like, I was struggling with life, struggling to get out of bed, and I just didn't know what to do. And it was my endocrinologist who advocated for me. She called, like, I walked into her office one day and she had tested me for everything possible. And she was just like, nah, it's the hemochromatosis. And she calls him, and it must have been divine intervention, because she actually got through to him while I was there in her room, which is
Wow.
pretty tricky sometimes with specialists. And I hear her on the phone and he's talking, and she just sort of interrupts him, I think. And she says, 55-year-old man and blah, blah, blah. She's not a 55-year-old man. She's a 41-year-old woman. Women and men don't present the same way, but because all the case studies have been done on men, you don't know how to treat her. And he was obviously a bit sheepish, because, or on the phone call, because he said, oh, she can come in this afternoon. So I went in with my mother because I was just so nervous and I couldn't advocate for myself at that point. And he decided to show me why he couldn't do anything for me, and why I wasn't sick enough. And he plugs into the Red Cross's database my levels, like, that had come out from the blood tests, and saying, see, you won't be accepted in the program. And it keeps on saying accepted. And he's like, oh, maybe your level is a bit worse now, but when I saw you last, and he plugs in a new number, and it just keeps on saying accepted, because I've got I've got two markers. And he was looking at the ferritin levels, but when there's another indicator, when they look at the percentage of iron in the organs, it was out of control. And what actually happened is, I've now, because of this and because of not being treated, I've got damage to my liver, to my pancreas, and my gallbladder. And this is all because I trusted and didn't advocate for myself. So this is why I like to be really open about invisible illness and talk about it, because I think it's really important as women that we can advocate for ourselves. And so much medicine is actually done on the male body because it's less complicated than ours.
Yeah, they don't have cycles the same way, do they? Well, actually, there's some research that says they do have certain cycles, but not quite the same way.
Yeah, no. So that's my story. So after that, I started going to the hospital every 4 weeks, have blood taken out of me, and it's been time. But that's one of the things that has helped me. Like, I am so well now comparatively. You know, I still get sick, and I still have chronic fatigue, and I still have migraines. But that started me on my journey to being healthier.
Well, I'm so glad that you are a lot healthier now. And let's talk about a different journey, which is your journey to starting your business. So how did your invisible illness, how are you able to start a business with an invisible illness? I mean, did you have negative self-talk that said, oh, I'm too sick, I'm too unwell, I can't do this? How did you overcome those sorts of challenges?
Yeah, I had heaps of negative thoughts, but I believed that starting a business was my way of supporting my body and supporting myself. So it took me years to get the confidence to actually do it, but I just thought, if I could do a business, I knew I had the drive. And I could then work around my health, as opposed to trying to, walk into an employee relationship job where your health doesn't know how many sick days you're allowed to have. Um, where, whereas now I work around my health. So if I have a migraine, I sleep. And then when I'm feeling great, I might put in bigger chunks of hours. I've coupled this with I am doing some casual government work to keep the money coming in until I become a superstar jewelry designer. And that works for me because I pick and choose those hours. So for me, actually, Deserve Luxury has been a real change and a positive change for my health, because I'm much healthier now, because I also hate letting other people down. And I think a lot of women are like that. And that creates a lot of
Mm.
stress. And stress with an illness is not a good thing. It's not good for anyone. But it compounds issues. And so I've removed, it's taken time, but I've removed the stresses from my life. So anything that was causing me stress, I try and eradicate that. And I'm a stressful person because I like to I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I like everyone to be happy. And so, there's always that's in my nature and my anxiety, but I try really hard to tell myself everything I do, is this going to make me money? Is this going to help somebody else? And if it's not one of those two things, don't do it.
That's a very good philosophy because, we do get roped into doing a lot of things because we think we should or we have to.
Yeah.
And I know myself, I thought I'd have a lot more time after I finished full-time work, and it was amazing how it filled up often with helping other people. When you don't have that particular structure to your day, it's amazing how that does change.
I think structure is really important. So I think I'm naturally, I have 50 million ideas a minute. And so I've got like a little planner on my desk. I mean, I've got my online calendar, but my planner on my desk is like, right, this is what I'm going to focus on these days. So if I'm doing my government work, that's the focus. And then, like, for example, today is all about Deserve Luxury. I put just what my main goals have to be for that week. So if I've got a heavy week of casual work, I don't ever want to lose focus on Deserve Luxury. So these are the 3 things that I'm going to achieve for my business this week. Without that, it's so easy to just kind of be having all these plates in the air, but not actually achieving anything.
Yeah, I hear you. It's very easy to do that. I think partly shiny object syndrome, and you have lots of shiny objects as well. So,
Yeah.
Both literally as well as philosophically. I want to acknowledge we've had lots of people putting lots of comments on the Facebook group, particularly in relation to treatment for migraines and what has worked for people and what hasn't worked for people. And Paula has said we need to be aware of our own bodies, and sorry, I've just lost that, and not always it's just gone, but it was basically to the extent of, and not always just trust what professionals say.
Absolutely. That, Paula, I'm with you there. I don't anymore. And actually that hematologist, the second one, the male one, I fired him. He's meant to be the best. I got rid of him. I've got this woman now who's incredible. So that's why I wanted to say before, I'm not anti-men, but just in my story, I've had bad experience with male practitioners. And yes, Paula, listen to your body.
Well, actually, I had a very bad experience once with a male associate professor gynecologist years ago. I was having a lot of trouble having children, and I had 2 miscarriages, and so long infertility journey plus that as well. And after the second miscarriage, he, insisted on some exploratory surgery, and was very brutal. He said, basically, you never get pregnant naturally, and it'd be too hard to try. He gave me some particular syndrome and yada, 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 yada. Anyway, long story short, I had 2 children who were both conceived naturally. The first one, I was actually on an IVF program. And at the point in the cycle where it's actually medically impossible to be fertile because your whole body goes into menopause, that's actually when I conceived.
Wow.
Just to make things really difficult for yourself.
Yeah.
And, he told me that, one of my fallopian tubes was fully blocked, and both my pregnancies were on that side. So
Wow.
kind of like, yeah. So sometimes that happens. Davina's just said she's popped in late, but she's here. We have a few other people, including Paula, Sue Brown, Rolf, and also Deb Parsons, who are here on the line, and we've been talking about invisible illness. So, what are some of your, takeaways, lessons learned about, starting your own business with an invisible illness?
Yeah, I think you need to be really honest with yourself with what you can do. So I think I can do everything. I always think I can do everything. Even when I don't think I can do everything, I say yes to everything. And I think when you're doing your own business, you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone. That's super important. But I think you just need to always give yourself context. So why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I just have to say yes to everything, or is it valuable to me? Is it valuable to others? So, and is it going to make you money? Because at the end of the day, a business is about our passion. So I'm passionate about jewelry design, but if I can't make any money from it, then how am I feeding my children? So, ultimately you have to be a little bit brutal in that way. And then break it down into chunks. So make it achievable. So like I said, when I have to at the moment do my casual work, eventually I won't have to do that and I'll just do my business. So now I say, okay, I need 3 things each week that I have to achieve, because you work so hard to establish a business. And if you take your foot off the pedal, you'll lose that engagement and you'll lose that audience. So for me, I think, work out what your platform is. So for me, Instagram is my important platform. Don't try and do everything. Like, don't be on like Snapchat if it's not relevant. Don't be on TikTok. Don't try and spread yourself too thin. And that goes for everyone, not just people with illness, just anyone doing a business, I think. But I think when you have illnesses, your own body. If you don't feel well, one thing I used to do was really bad at in employed work, I would just keep on going anyway. And what the consequence of that would be is I'd get sick instead of maybe being a little bit sick for a few days, I'd be sick for weeks. So now if I feel a migraine coming on or my fatigue's really bad, I just cancel things. I go and hop into bed. I explain why, like I don't just cancel. Like, so today, if I had a really bad migraine, I would have contacted you and said, Serena, I'm so sorry, I can't do it. This is why. Can we please reschedule? If it's not possible, can we do it for a shorter period of time? Just renegotiate the terms.
Yeah. I'm a chronic migraine sufferer as well. There's a family history that comes from my late Nana down. So all 3 of my aunts have migraines. My mum has migraines. My sister has bad migraines. And it is really hard because when you have one, like, you look fairly normal. Like, usually if I'm at work and I have to go to work, I'll put sunglasses on, mainly because of the glare. And people can usually see I'm not happy, but they can't see why I'm not happy. But when it goes, it's like I'm normal. Like, if you've got a cold, like, you sort of, you bring up sick and you're like, I'm really sick, but, you'll still have those cold symptoms for a while. And actually, I'm hoping in COVID times people aren't even in the office at all if they've got those kind of symptoms. But, it used to be a lot of presenteeism that people would turn up. But with a migraine or other things, like, you look perfectly normal. And when it's over, like, there's no scars or symptoms that linger.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess I have gone from looking after everybody else and thinking about everyone else to actually listening to my body, which is what Paula said earlier. I now listen to my body all the time, and that's how I manage my health. So I actually don't have blood tests on a set for my hemochromatosis. I don't have them on a set period anymore. I listen to my body, and I can feel in my body when my iron levels are rising. And then I've got like one of those pathology thing, like forms that just sits in the thing for 6 months. And I just walk in and say, okay, I need to have a blood test. And sure enough, the overload of iron in the organs will be high. And then I go to hospital, have the blood taken. So it's amazing how much you can actually listen to your own body and learn about your body and what you need. But then in saying that, like, I don't know, I gave that example, but I probably would have come on and done it because I would have felt too guilty to let you down. but
I probably would have booted you off if you weren't well, or at least made it easy for you. But quite seriously, though, you've come from, a public, service context. I mean, you've talked about it being difficult. You felt guilty about taking leave, but you still had that security blanket of the leave that was there. And that's, something that a lot of people look to stable, full-time jobs for, especially in the public service. Was it scary sort of going, okay, let's take this leap and I'm not going to have that security blanket?
hell yeah, it's it's still scary. I'm like, no, I'm not, because I went from, so I was working in corporate sales. I halved my salary to go to the public service, and now I've basically half my salary again. So, but I've made the decision that money is not, like, obviously you need to have enough money to support your family. So I have, a partner, he has a job. He's actually about to go into business for himself as well. So we're crazy. So we're a little insane, but
It happens. I hope you've got a good saving plan. Always happy to talk to you about money from the frugalista point of view.
well, that's what I loved your talk about the frugal savings, because that's what we've had to do. We've had to, like, I don't, like, this is going to sound like a terrible example, but I love French champagne. Well, I'm not drinking French champagne at the moment. I'm buying a much cheaper bottle of sparkling wine. So it's making those adjustments in your life. And obviously that's a big example, but
Yeah, I know.
used to have the money that I could afford, that deserve luxury. Like, I'm into luxury and I love luxury, but it's about making adjustments that work, because at the end of the day, would I rather drink French champagne, or would I rather have good health? I'd rather,
Well, yeah, it's exactly, good question. But on on the champagne aspect, Australia has some amazing sparkling wines, and I know through the Wanderlust series, which is where we connected. There are a number that are showcases a lot locally. But for those of you in Canberra, go to Dan Murphy's at Dixon and ask for Freddie. So Frederique Ramban is an amazing sommelier. She is French. She likes her sparkling wines, and she can tell you how to get some really good value ones.
oh, that's a great tip. I love it.
Yeah, frugalista. With contact.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're just about to wrap up. So if anyone's got any final questions for Sarah, please post them here. I will be sharing this Facebook Live on YouTube, and I love subscribers. So please do check out the Joyful Business Club YouTube channel. You can see this and a number of other topics that are there, so you can watch them again and again and again. And my mastermind group for aspiring people in startups, whatever phase you're at, it is not too late to join. In fact, I just had someone join this morning, which I'm really excited about. And that's held on Tuesday nights over 12 weeks. So we've got a comment about sparkling wine. Australian sparkling is as good, if not better, than French these days. Yeah, it is. It's very good. There's some, very nice local varieties. I particularly like the sparkling out at Lake George. Sarah does a really good job there, and it's organic as well. So I don't get migraines from it as well.
Yeah.
And there's some really good Tasmanian sparklings as well.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Sarah, for being my guest.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And make sure to share your website so people know where to buy your beautiful bling. Did I mention I like your bling?
No, I will. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.